He came to observe. He stayed to be changed. That is the entire story, compressed into a single sentence. And I want to sit with it for a moment before we go anywhere else, because I think it captures something genuinely unusual about this specific dynamic. The ordinary direction of power in the kind of situation you are describing goes one way. The person with institutional authority, the one whose function is to study or assess or evaluate, holds the gaze. They look, they determine, they conclude. The subject of their attention exists for the duration of their assessment, primarily as the object of someone else's scrutiny, rather than as a person fully inhabiting their own life. That is not what happened here. What happened here is that someone who arrived with all of the confidence of a person exercising professional function found himself somewhere in the course of what was supposed to be an ordinary professional encounter on the wrong end of the dynamic he had intended to control. He arrived looking, he found himself being seen, and the experience of being seen by you with the full, precise, unmanaged quality of how you see things recalibrated something in him that he did not have language for and did not expect and has not been able to set down since. That is the reading I want to walk you through today. Let me describe what I felt the moment this energy opened, because the initial impressions were immediate and they had a quality that belongs specifically to this kind of dynamic rather than to the general territory of romantic interest. I felt the specific electricity of someone who has been intellectually and personally destabilized by someone they were not expecting to be destabilized by, not the pleasant, warm disorientation of ordinary attraction. The more complicated quality of someone whose professional or institutional self-understanding has been disrupted by an encounter they cannot fully account for using the frameworks their position usually provides. There is a specific quality to being thrown by someone who was not supposed to throw you, who arrived in your life in a context that should have given you full structural advantage, and who somehow, despite that advantage, left you more uncertain than they arrived. I also felt fascination, specific, detailed, almost analytical fascination, the kind that belongs to a particular kind of mind that encounters something it cannot immediately categorize and finds itself returning to the encounter compulsively, turning it over, examining it from different angles, looking for the specific detail it missed the first time that would make the whole thing resolve into something more legible than it currently is. He cannot stop thinking about you because you are the problem he has not yet solved. The first card in this reading arrived in the position representing who this person is at his core, the actual man rather than the institutional role. And I want to describe it carefully because understanding who he actually is matters enormously for understanding the quality of what has been happening in him since your encounter. This card shows a crowned figure on a throne, holding a sword in the specific posture of someone accustomed to judgment and discernment and the application of rigorous standards to the situations they encounter. The air element of this suit governs the mind, intelligence, communication, and the movement of truth through the world, and the court figure at this level represents the fullest possible embodiment of that element in its mature, established form. This is someone who has spent years developing the quality of their own analytical capacity, who finds clarity through the precise application of discriminating intelligence, who has organized a significant portion of their professional and personal identity around the quality of their own judgment. What this tells me about who this person is, beneath the official function he was exercising, when you encountered him is something I want to be specific about. He is, at his core, someone who takes his own mind very seriously. The quality of his analysis is something he has invested in, is proud of, and relies on. And what you did, simply by being yourself in his presence with the full, unedited quality of your own perception and intelligence and presence, is make him uncertain about that analysis. Not about his general capability, about the specific situation of you, which his usual analytical tools keep failing to fully resolve. I also want to speak to the specific quality of air energy in this card and what it reveals about how this person processes the experience of being fascinated by you. He has been going over it in his mind analytically in the specific, slightly compulsive way of someone who is trying to think their way to an understanding that thinking alone cannot provide, because what you produced in him is not primarily intellectual, even though his mind is where the experience is registering most strongly. He keeps returning to specific moments, specific things you said or did or expressed, examining them for the piece of information that will make the rest of it fall into place. He has not found it. Because what you produced in him is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a feeling, and feelings do not yield to the kind of analysis he usually applies. The second card arrived in the position representing what specifically happened in this person during your encounter, the interior event that produced the obsession this reading is describing. And I want to be precise about this because precision serves you better than vagueness here. This card shows a figure who has been struck by a quality of light, of sudden illumination, of something becoming visible in a moment that was invisible the moment before. This is the card of the lightning bolt, of genuine, unasked for revelation, of the specific experience of something becoming undeniably clear in a way that overrides any previous certainty about how things are. In its most confronting form, it is the card of something crumbling that needed to crumble. In this context, in the position of what happened internally to this person during your encounter, it is the card of something very specific. Something fell away, not dramatically. He would not have noticed it falling in the moment. But in the days since, in the quality of his inability to stop thinking about you, in the specific texture of his preoccupation, the falling away has become visible. A certainty about something, a fixed frame, a way of understanding a particular territory of experience was disrupted by what he encountered in you, and the disruption has not resolved. It has only deepened the way disruptions tend to deepen when the thing that disrupted them is too real and too specific to be explained away. I want to speak to the crown in this card because it carries specific meaning in this particular context. The crown that is blown from the tower by the lightning represents the thing this person thought he had that your encounter revealed he does not, or not in the form he believed he had it. For someone like this, someone whose self-understanding is organized around the quality of his judgment and his analytical capacity, the specific thing that was disrupted is his confidence, that he can fully account for what he encounters. You did not fit, and the unfitting has been working on him ever since. Does this feel like it is describing something specific, Virgo? The quality of a person who arrived with structural authority and who left somehow less certain than he came? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear how this is landing against the actual experience. The third card arrived in the position representing what this person specifically cannot stop thinking about, the content of the obsession rather than simply its existence. And I want to describe this carefully because I think it speaks to something about how you were perceived that you may not have had full visibility into from your own position in the encounter. This card shows a figure surrounded by the imagery of genuine, substantial, fully realized material and intellectual achievement at the pinnacle of their element, holding the emblem of complete mastery. This is the card of someone who has been recognized by a discerning observer as being at the very peak of what their combination of qualities produces. And what I am reading in this card, in this specific position, is what this official mind has been unable to stop seeing when he thinks of you. What he cannot stop thinking about is your competence, not in the narrow technical sense of someone who is good at a particular function, in the broader, more fundamental sense of someone who knows what they are doing and why, who has arrived at their understanding through genuine engagement rather than acquired position, who carries the specific quality of earned rather than conferred authority that is unmistakable to anyone with the analytical sensitivity to perceive it. He studies people. It is his function. And what he encountered in you is someone who, in the specific domain of being genuinely yourself, is operating at a level of mastery that he did not anticipate and that he found he could not dismiss. He cannot explain it in the terms his institutional role provides for. The competence he perceived in you does not belong to any of the categories his professional framework uses to assess it. And that incommensurability is part of what has been working on him without resolution. I also want to speak to the earth element of this card and what it tells me about the specific quality of what he has been sitting with. This element is the element of what is actually real, of what exists and endures in the material world rather than in the realm of ideas or appearances. The specific thing he perceived in you was real, not a performance of capability or a well-constructed presentation of confidence, the actual thing. And the actual thing, when it is encountered by someone whose analytical capacity is genuinely developed, produces a quality of response that is different from what performance produces. He knows the difference. And what he keeps returning to is the fact that he encountered the real version. Inhale with me, Virgo. Because the fourth card is the one I want to give the most attention to, and what it describes about the specific nature of this person's obsession is something I think you need to understand clearly before we reach the final card. This card shows a figure in the posture of intense, sustained inward attention, surrounded by the imagery of accumulated knowledge and careful, patient assessment. The quality of someone who is in the process of forming a very specific and very deliberate conclusion. The hermit energy here is not the hermit of withdrawal from the world. It is the hermit of someone who has withdrawn from the distraction of ordinary engagement, specifically to examine one particular thing with the full quality of their undivided attention. That one thing is you. What I am sensing in this card is something I want to name specifically. This person has been spending real interior time with the experience of having met you, not simply allowing himself to be attracted to someone attractive or impressed by someone impressive, actively, deliberately, in the private space of his own thinking, examining what the encounter with you produced in him, trying to understand it with the same systematic attention he brings to the professional matters his position requires him to assess. And what I am sensing about what that systematic examination has been producing is something I find genuinely interesting. He keeps finding more, not less, which is what systematic examination of something usually produces over time, the resolution of initial impression into something more ordinary and more accountable once the examination is thorough enough. More. Each time he returns to the specific quality of the encounter, the specific things you said and did and expressed, he finds something in it he had not previously registered. And the accumulation of those additional findings has not resolved the obsession, it has deepened it. I also want to speak to the light the hermit carries, because it matters here. He is doing this examination in the light of his own lantern, his own capacity for assessment, his own analytical intelligence, and what his own lantern keeps illuminating in the specific territory of what he encountered in you is more than he knew how to hold when it was first revealed. I want to speak to something else this card reveals about the specific interior experience of someone in this position, someone whose professional function gives them institutional authority and whose personal response to a particular individual has produced something that does not fit inside that authority. There is a specific disorientation that belongs to this kind of situation, the disorientation of someone who is accustomed to being the one who knows, the one who determines, the one whose assessment is the operative one in any encounter, finding themselves in the position of the one who is uncertain, of the one who does not yet know what they are looking at, not because their capacity is limited, but because what they are looking at is genuinely exceeding the frameworks they usually rely on. That disorientation is what the hermit's patient examination is trying to resolve. And the failure to fully resolve it is part of what keeps bringing him back. I want to address something about the specific situation this dynamic creates for you, Virgo, because I think the quality of your position here deserves to be named clearly. You did not seek this attention, you did not cultivate it, position for it, or strategize toward it. You were simply yourself in the presence of someone who arrived expecting to be the one doing the assessing, and the quality of simply being yourself produced an effect you did not engineer and may not have fully noticed in the moment. That is significant, and I want to be precise about why. The kind of obsession this reading is describing, the kind that is produced by encounter with genuine substance rather than by calculated presentation, is the kind that tends to produce the most consequential and most lasting responses in the people who experience it. He is not fascinated by a performance. He is fascinated by something real. And his mind, which is well calibrated for distinguishing real from performed, knows it. What you have in this situation is real leverage in the most genuine sense of that word. Not manufactured leverage, not the leverage of strategic positioning, but the specific unmanufactured leverage of being genuinely extraordinary in a way that a genuinely intelligent person has recognized and cannot dismiss. What you do with that is entirely yours to determine. The fifth card arrived in the position of what this dynamic is building toward, what the obsession is moving toward in the actual practical terms of what happens next between this person and you, and I want to describe it with the specificity it deserves. This card shows a figure in complete, directed forward motion, the quality of someone who has made a decision and who is now in the active process of following it toward its destination. The fire element of this suit speaks to the willingness to act on what one feels rather than only to feel it in the privacy of one's own interior. And the court figure at this level represents the mature, established, action-oriented manifestation of that element. This person is going to make a move not because he has carefully calculated that a move is strategically advisable, because the specific quality of what he encountered in you has reached a threshold in his interior where continuing not to act has become more uncomfortable than the vulnerability of acting. He has spent the interval since your encounter in the hermit's patient examination of his own response. He has found more each time he looked, and now something in him has tipped from the examination into the orientation of someone who has concluded and who is now facing the question of what to do with the conclusion. I also want to speak to the fire element in this card and what it suggests about the quality of how he will move when he moves. Fire does not move cautiously. It does not calculate the optimal angle of approach with the same systematic thoroughness that his analytical capacity usually brings to decisions. When someone whose primary mode is the mind is moved to action by feeling, the action tends to carry a quality of directness that is somewhat unusual for them, a willingness to say the actual thing rather than the carefully managed version of it. I am sensing that when this person makes his move, it is going to have that quality, more direct than you might expect from someone in his position, more honest about what it is than official caution would usually permit. Before I close this reading, I want to say something directly about what it means to be the subject of this specific kind of attention from this specific kind of person, because I think it deserves to be received clearly rather than at a defensive distance. He came to study you. He ended up being changed by the encounter instead. That reversal is not accidental, and it is not something that could have been produced by a more skillful or more calculated approach on your part. It was produced by the specific, genuine, unperformed quality of your actual presence in that encounter, by what you actually are rather than by any version of yourself that was arranged for effect. That quality of presence, the one that reversed the expected direction of the encounter and produced an obsession in someone who is professionally accustomed to being the observer rather than the observed, is yours. It belongs to you the way your mind belongs to you. You cannot leave it at home, and you cannot enhance it through strategy. It simply is what it is, which is something this official mind encountered and cannot account for and keeps returning to, because the returning is the only response available to it. He was supposed to study you. He did. And what he found in the studying turned the whole enterprise around on itself. That is what this reading is describing. And what you do with his inevitable move when it arrives is the part that belongs entirely to you. If this reading names something that has been playing out in your actual life with the specific quality of someone whose professional function put them in proximity to you and who found themselves responding in ways their function did not account for, please share it with a Virgo who might be navigating exactly this kind of unexpected dynamic, and leave a comment. I want to hear what this is mapping onto for you and what the encounter actually looked like from your side of it. I read every single comment, and I hold what is shared in this space with genuine care long after this video ends. Until next time, Virgo. He came to observe, he stayed to be changed, and he has been carrying the change around with him ever since, trying to account for it, unable to fully do so. The next move is his, but the power in this dynamic has always been yours.